strongly against the motion that students' examination accurately reflects a student's academic potential. By academic potential, we mean that a student's ability to engage in critical thinking, problem solving, creativity, and the practical application of knowledge, skills that exams do not and cannot.
Exams don't define potential, they define who's best at playing the system's game, and guess what? Some of us are here to change the game entirely. Academic potential is about problem solving, creativity, and resilience. If you think multiple choice questions capture that, you're not talking about education, you are talking about convenience.
Exams provide a fair, standardized, and a proven way to assess student knowledge, skills, and readiness for future academic challenges. Exams motivate students to study consistently and take their education seriously. The preparation process helps develop important skills such as time management, critical thinking, and the ability to perform under pressure.
In a November 2023 interview, RMS officer Pumzile Mukwena said, I quote, "Our duty starts with the heartbeats of the campus, the students. Without them, the building means nothing. You can rebuild a building, but you cannot rebuild a life."
Their goal to protect structures, not students. During the Palestinian solidarity protest at the Columbia University, as reported by the New Yorker, law enforcement used aggressive tactics to suppress the protest, clearly prioritizing property over the well-being of students, the very people whose tuition and presence gives meaning to these institutions.
Exams are accurate mirrors of academic potential. Spoiler alert, they're not. They're closer to a magnifying glass, blowing up pressure, circumstances, and privilege while shrinking real abilities. Let's get into it. My fellow debater, the first speaker, has outlined how the exam rewards those who have the ability to memorize quickly and be able to recite under pressure, while excluding those who do not acquire such ability. In other words, potential.
I would like for our opponents to consider why examinations were initiated in the first place. It's not about how much time you spend on the examination room or how much pressure you can get on. It's about into oyitholayo wena. Examinations are a way to objectively test a student's grasp of content and intellectual capabilities. Imagine going to a driving school and then figure out they just question you. Do you know how to drive? And you say yes, they give you a license. Obviously, you're going to cause an accident.
The second speaker from the proposition team said prioritizing first years more than second years. And yet, this word guarantee doesn't mean preferences. It doesn't mean priority. It simply means non-negotiable promises. And the university is simply not equipped to make that promise to any group while failing others. The third speaker from the team proposition said the first years are unfamiliar with the transition. So you're saying that first years are unfamiliar with the transition. Should that make seniors be familiar with being exposed to danger?
Please note that we do not suggest that senior students should be overlooked. Rather, we advocate for prioritizing those who are least prepared, namely the first-year students. It is within the campus residences that community is built, where roommates become friends, where informal support systems grow, which seniors have already been exposed to such chances. First-year students need this social foundation to thrive socially, emotionally, and academically.
Firstly, I would like to start with the first argument of the speaker. She talked about a safe, stable environment that is supposed to be provided, universities failing to teach independency to first years, giving them protection and care, and that it would lead to bad performance in school. Are you serious? You have any backup for that? Because you guys did not reference at all. UniZulu, which is an example that was made by one of the speakers, she said that UniZulu does not have any residences for UniZulu. Actually built residences for students, which means that the speaker didn't do enough research on her points. Even first-year students have moved in already.
What we're saying here is the people who should be guaranteed their accommodation should be first years and not seniors. Why are we saying that? It is because they are the most vulnerable part of our society. And also, who is most likely to drop out? It's the first year, because they don't know the pressure, they've never dealt with the pressure.
Let's proceed. Instead not to reject the needs of first years, but to remind this House that every students matters from the day they arrive to the day they graduate. So let me illustrate, you guys are saying the students who have survived 3 years of university stress now be kicked out just to make space for someone new. What should the students writing their thesis who depends on stable Wi-Fi and quiet study space do? Okay, yes, first year uni guidelines is a big local, but so do the students in their second, third, or final year who are still struggling financially, emotionally, and academically. Our first speaker clearly showed that accommodation should be based on real needs, not just being new.
It's raw and it's tearing families apart. Murder, rape, and gender-based violence are devastating our communities. But let's get real. Reinstating the death penalty won't magically wipe out violent crime in South Africa. If anything, it's a flashy distraction from the real work that needs to be done. Remember, the death penalty was a tool of oppression during the apartheid. Yes, that apartheid. The same brutal regime that weaponized the death penalty against black South Africans, activists, and anyone who dared to demand freedom and equality. Slapping it back on now, that's not justice. That's a dangerous step backwards.
As my first speaker has rightfully argued, criminals must fear the consequences of their action. What is more terrifying than facing death for committing a violent crime? It is this fear of finality that they will stop killers and rapists in their track. We need a deterrent so strong that criminals will think twice before committing murder or rape. The death penalty is the deterrent. The case of Unhle Bella, a 5-year-old girl who was brutally murdered by a man who had been granted parole for an earlier violent crime, highlighting the failure of our current justice system.
Reinstating the death penalty in South Africa is not only ineffective, but it is also dangerous, unethical, and unjust. While the proposition might appeal to emotion and the deep pain caused by the violent crimes, we must base our laws on evidence, principles of justice, and a clear understanding of how our legal system is flawed. Let me begin with the claim that the death penalty reduces the violent crimes like murder and rape. There is no credible evidence to support this. The National Research Council released a comprehensive study in 2012 which states, and I quote, "Research to date on the effect of capital punishment on crimes is not useful for determining whether the death penalty increases, decreases, or has no effect on crime rates. In other words, it simply does not work."
The fact that the youth have to make their own plans because society and the government doesn't make places for them. They have to make their own solutions. That just goes with what we are saying and what the affirmative is going for. In closing, let us be absolutely clear. South African youth are not lazy. They are being failed by a system that was never built with them in mind. Over 60% of young people aged 15 to 34 are unemployed. Is that a reflection of an individual laziness or of a national crisis? We argue the latter. Our schools lack resources. Many jobs in South Africa are still about who you know.
Today we stand to defend the truth that cannot be ignored. South Africa's youth are not just the victims of the broken system, they are also part of the problem. We can also clearly see there's some unemployment. Yes, access to quality education and jobs is limited. But does the broken system mean we stop trying to throw our hands in the air and say it's not my fault? Until when? Okay, my fellow teammates have shown that there are young people who succeed despite the same system, of which is a solution that we came with. Okay, why is that? Because they keep trying and pushing. Where is that same energy in others? Okay, we see youth skipping classes, turning down attention because it's too far, refuse to volunteer or study further when free platforms exist. Is that not laziness behind blame?
As a university located at the heart of KwaZulu-Natal, it is our responsibility to promote the rich linguistic and cultural heritage of our region. Making isiZulu a graduation requirement will not only promote linguistic diversity, but it is also acknowledging the importance of our cultural heritage. It turns out, isiZulu proficiency is already a requirement for some undergraduate degrees. A study conducted by the University of KwaZulu-Natal itself and published in the year 2013 states that UKZN is proud to be the first South African higher level to be the first South African institution of higher learning to make bilingualism a requirement or a compulsory requirement for undergraduates, and thus providing our young professionals with vital communication skills.
Options, even international languages. This constricts us as students of KwaZulu-Natal to only be restricted to KwaZulu-Natal to know only isiZulu. As a Zulu-speaking student from a Zulu-speaking community, what would I gain by learning isiZulu in varsity in order to graduate? Would I not gain more opportunities in the workplace if I choose to study a language like sign language, like Mandarin? Therefore, I'm broadening my opportunities to work even overseas because I'm able to attain such languages in university. Look at
isiZulu, a language deeply rooted in history, identity, and soul of KwaZulu-Natal, is undoubtedly noble and necessary. However, what we as the opposition are trying to say is that its revival and recognition must be, number one, inclusive. It must also be flexible, and it must also be respectful of the diverse student body that this institution serves.
According to the report by UNESCO published in 2003, every language reflects a unique worldview with its own value, systems, and particular way of life. When we erase our languages, we erase our way of thinking. When we honor them, we restore our intellectual independence. The debate is not just a language requirement. It is about who we are, what we value, and the kind of future we are building, the people of this province. UKZN has an opportunity to lead, to send a message that this institution reflects not only global standards, but local realities. So we close this. If you truly believe in justice, relevance, and equality in education, how can we not support this motion? We strongly affirm it. Ndawonye siyanibonga.